Hello and welcome to this Blender tutorial. My name is Ben Morgan, and in this tutorial I'm going to teach you guys how to make dynamic text in the Blender game engine. Now, text before in the Blender game engine was actually pretty complicated. You had to use what is called bit mapping, and that was basically lining up an image file with a plane, and it was really complicated. But now the people at the Blender development place, or some kind person, developed a method to use just the regular text objects in the Blender game engine, and they can be changed and they can have properties, and it's really cool. So why don't I show you a sample file of this. These are 5 different types of text objects. Each of them do something different. So the first one is a timer, so it's a kind of a stopwatch. It counts up, and that timer can have a property so that, like, if it gets to a certain time, it will end the game or something like that. So that's cool. This one is a countdown timer that counts every second. You can see here that we have, it looks kind of complicated, but that's really not. It's just always giving it a property. It every 60 frames, it is removing 1 from that property, and then when it gets to the value of -1, meaning that it's counted down all the way to 0, we're going to quit the game. Now this one is something that's cool. It counts the amount of taps that you have. So if I tap the keyboard, it's going to add 1 to this. And so it's cool that the text values now can be integers. So this one is a string, this one is a timer property, this one is an integer. So you can add 1 to the text and it will count up for you, basically. This one changes when you press a certain key, when you press 5. So if I look at this here, you can see that we're just getting that object and we're just changing the text to that. So that's pretty simple. Next, this is similar, but it's just using the mouse, so you can see that we can do a lot of different things with this. So why don't I play this and show you guys what happens. So you see here that we have a little timer going on. If I press the space bar, that counts up. If I press 5, that changes, and if I right click, that changes. And you can see here, you can see when, this one is getting covered up by the other one. When this reaches 0, the game ends. But we're not going to wait for that to happen, so why don't we just jump in and start this ourselves. So the first one we're going to do is just the timer. So why don't we go up to the game logic panel, and let's make a timer. So first thing we're going to do is delete this cube, and we're just going to Shift A, add text. So we're going to add a text object. Now this text object is going to be named timer. It's important to name these things because we might have to do some scripting with them later. This one we're not, but some of the other ones we will. So this one over here in properties, we're going to add a text game property, and we're going to call it timer. And that's really all you have to do for just this simple stopwatch. If you press play, you can see that it counts up like that. And if you wanted to, you could look in the Blender API for the game engine, and you could look and see if you could, set it so that when the timer value gets to a certain point, you end the game or you do a certain action. So, but we won't necessarily do that here. But I'll show you how to do that in the next one, because it's pretty much the same concept. So why don't we go do that? Shift A, add text. This is going to be our countdown object. So why don't we move it out of the way so it's not getting in the way of all those decimals. Okay, so this is going to be, why don't we just make the text on these. So if you just tab in edit mode, you can type in, this will be timer, this will be countdown. Okay, so this one, what we have to do is have an always sensor and make sure the frequency is always on. And we have to always give it a property, assign it the property, and we have to add that text game property. So add the property integer, and oops, X out that. Okay, so always add the property text, and don't give it a value. So why don't we just look at our other one for reference? Let's see, we have always, okay, so it is an integer, It's a string. Okay. Okay, I see. Okay, so for this one, we're gonna give it a string value, but it's gonna have a game property of an integer, and you can start that at 10. Right here, you can start the value. So if we always assign it the property of text, it's gonna be a string, and the value of that text is gonna be the value of this property. Let's rename it to count with a capital C. So the value of capital C count, if you press play, it'll always have 10 because every click of our game engine, it's always assigning it to 10. So say we wanted to count down. So to do that, what we do is always and click the true triggering and make the frequency 60. Because if you go over to, in the game engine panel, if you go over, I think it's in world, where the FPS is. Maybe it's in here. Okay, it's somewhere around here. Let's see. Yeah, right here. In the world panel, FPS 60. So that means that there are 60 frames per second, meaning that if we wanted this to count down, do this 1 time per second, we need to do frequency of 60 because that is in, it's called logic ticks, but 60 logic ticks is pretty much the same as 60 frames. That's probably not 100% true, but that's what we're going with. All right, so every 60 frames, we want to give it a property. We want to add, there is no subtract value, but you can add -1 and that will work. So that will subtract 1 from it, from the property count. Okay? So if we did this right, if we press play, yes, it should start. And you can see that the very first frame, it starts at 10, but then it goes right to 9. So why don't we start this at 11 so that we have all of 10 shown. Okay, so that's cool. It's counting down. Now, this is a countdown, so we want something to happen when 0 is reached. So if we add in a property, so if the property evaluation type equal, so if the property of count is equal to, we're going to put -1 because it's just another one of those counting things. Like if right when it got to 0, it would do this action. But we want it to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, action. You know, you want it to pause a little at 0. So add actuator, and we can do, I don't know, edit object. Let's end the object. So end object. So when this happens, when it equals 0, this text object is going to disappear. And why don't we just set this at 3 so that we don't have to wait 10 seconds to show it. 0, and it deletes the object. Cool. Awesome. So I'm just going to save this. Tutorial text. Okay, so this is called dynamic text, and the cool thing about it is that it can be scripted too. So we're going to just duplicate this object. Actually, no, let's add a whole new one. Shift-A, add text. Okay, this is going to be, let's see, we are going to, when we click, we want this object to change. So to do that, we'll just say right click. Okay, and this object will be called click, and this object will be called countdown. Okay, so you could change the name in the world panel, in the object panel. Okay, so this one, we're gonna have it always with the true level frequency or triggering or whatever, always run a Python script, okay? And we're gonna have it run a module. So we're gonna add a new text block here, and we're gonna do some scripting. So let me just zoom in so you guys can see this. Okay, so we're gonna define a function, but first we gotta import the Blender game engine. So import bge, and we're gonna define a function. So def click So this will be named, I don't know, mouse action. So capital M mouse underscore action dot click. That is how you define the method that you want to run. So click. So we need to before we do that, we also need to import a few more things. So we need to define our scene. So scene equals bge. No, is it bge.logic? Yes. So bge scene equals bge.logic.get capital C current scene. So we're going to get the current scene. Then we have to define our dynamic text object. So we'll call it we'll do that in here. So dynamic text equals scene.objects, and in the brackets, in those brackets inside of parentheses are the name of our object, which is click. Okay, so what we want to do is set that dynamic text to a certain value. So dynamic text.text, that's a method that it has, or it's a object data that you can you can access directly, such as the length of a string or something. Dynamic text.text equals you clicked. Okay? So if this is right, which I sure hope it is, when we right click, I'm sorry, not always. What am I doing here? We should not have an always sensor. We should have a mouse sensor here. Mouse sensor, the right button. Okay, that would make more sense. So if we right click, it's not working. Okay, so maybe when we tap it. Let's look at this for reference. Right click. Or it's press 5. Okay, so keyboard, press 5, simple text py. Oh, that's interesting why it's not working. Maybe, why don't we just not make this a method? It doesn't need to be a method anyways, so we can just run the script, mouse action. Okay, and that works. It was just, I probably defined the method running wrong. So when we right click now, it changes to you clicked. So I just deleted the method, and I had to shift tab over here to make sure that it was all left aligned, and then I changed the script down here to mouse action, which is the script that we just wrote. So cool. When we right click, it now changes. So that's cool because you can also do it for things like mousing over. Like say if I change this to mouse over, hopefully this will work. Oh well, you can't see my text anyway, so it doesn't really matter anyways. That doesn't work. Maybe mouse over. No. Well, it's kind of hard to do since you can't really see the mouse right now. We haven't defined that. Okay, but anyways, let's move on to another one. This will be a click counter sort of thing. So let's add a text, and this will be called I count left clicks. Okay, and this will be called click underscore counter. Okay, so this one is going to have a game property, and it's going to, or a text game property of a string, and it's going to have a property value. Oh, actually, no, all we need is a string. So if we were to have it so that we wanted to count it left clicks, we'd have to make it so that every time there's a mouse left click, we want it to property, add to the property text, and add a value of 1. So let's see what that does. You can see that it adds on. So that's not really what we want, because what it's doing is it's adding to that string a value of 1. So if we were to do what we did with this countdown, what we would do is add a game property to it, add an integer, and we'll give it a value of 0. We'll give this clicks. So this one is going to, instead of affecting the string, because what that's doing right now is just adding 1 onto the end of the string right here. So it's just basically that's what it's doing. So what we want is for it, when you click the mouse button, you want to add 1 to the clicks value, and then have this text object always run, let's see, always have the property, always assign the property of clicks. So always have the property of, or actually always have the property string value text with the value of clicks. So clicks is a variable that can be accessed. So now, if we left click, you can see that it counts up. So that's how you would do that. So see, we had to, let me explain that farther. So what we were having before is that it was a string value, and the add value for the string is just going to add on that value. That value is going to be like what it's going to add on to the string. But if we want it to act like an integer, we have to also give it the game property of an integer, have it always be that game property, well, always have the value of that property, but with the property of the string text. So hopefully that makes sense. And let's see, what else was there that I wanted to show you? So we have it so that you can change things. I guess there is one more thing where you could actually type in things in the game engine and like change them, like have the user type in their name or something. But I'll do that in a different tutorial. For this tutorial, I think this is good. We press play, we have a timer, we have something that counts down and ends when it's deleted. We have something that changes when you right click, and something that counts when we left click. So I hope this tutorial came in handy for you guys. If you liked it, please comment below and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.